Are you considering selling your collector or classic car at a traditional in-person auction house, such as Barrett Jackson, Mecum, or Carlisle? I'm Rudy Samsel, the co-founder of GuysWithRides.com, the only dealer-free website for collector car enthusiasts. In this video, I take you through 7 advantages to listing your classic car in an online auction rather than traditional in-person venues. The first is time savings. Choosing an online auction means you'll get your classic car listed for sale and sold at auction much sooner than traditional venues. Here at Guys with Rides, we can have your collector cars auction ready in a matter of days. Contrast that to having to work around the venue schedules of traditional in-person auctions that are often weeks or months away. Additionally, the closest venue to you might be months away, forcing you to spend more on shipping for an auction farther away. Second is lower fees. Online collector car auctions, such as Guys with Rides or even Bring a Trailer, enjoy much lower overhead costs. That low overhead is passed directly onto both the sellers and buyers alike. Mecum and Barrett Jackson, on top of the 10% seller's premium, sellers pay a scheduling fee depending on the day and time they would like their classic car to cross the block. Here's an example of the seller's cost at a traditional auction versus Guys with Rides for a $50,000 collector car. As the table illustrates, a seller can save over $7,000 auctioning their classic car online versus a traditional venue. Third is shipping and lodging costs. In this age of $5 a gallon diesel fuel, shipping costs for collector cars doubled since 2021. Using an enclosed carrier to ship your ride to the desired auction venue will cost a seller $2,000 to $4,000 one way, coast to coast. While a seller only has to pay one way if they are brave enough to auction their car at no reserve, for traditional venues that allow a reserve price, sellers might be faced with a second transportation bill if their car does not sell during their auction. Additionally, most traditional in-person venues require the seller or representative to be present when their car crosses the auction block. Consequently, the seller has the added expense of travel, lodging, meals, and entertainment when they are forced to attend an in-person event. Fourth is minimizing the risk of car damage. The beauty of an online auction is that your collector car never has to leave your garage until you're paid and the buyer or their hired transport company comes to pick it up. With a traditional in-person auction, there is always a risk your collector car could be damaged in transit or worse yet, at the venue itself. In January 2010, during Scottsdale, Arizona auction week, heavy rains and sustained winds in excess of 50 miles an hour took their toll on several tents at 3 of the 5 auction sites held that year. Weather aside, at a Barrett Jackson or Mecum auction, your collector car gets exposed to crowds of people, most of whom have no plans on bidding on any car, who treat the event like a huge car show. Consequently, there is always a risk someone will inadvertently damage your car before it crosses the auction block. An online auction might be your preferred venue if you tend to be more risk-averse. Fifth is transparency. All online auctions, including Guys with Rides, are very transparent with their fees. While Mecum Auctions is fairly open about its consignment fees, as noted above, the same cannot be said about Barrett Jackson collector car auctions. To be considered for one of their events, Barrett Jackson require potential sellers to fill out a preliminary consignment form with no fees listed. Sellers then learn the extent of the fees when they receive a call from one of Barrett Jackson's consignment specialists. With no publicly listed prices that we can find, sellers do not know whether they are paying more or less than other consignees for a given venue. Sixth is the no reserve risk. While it's true that no reserve auctions tend to increase hammer prices, it is not a guarantee, as the day and time of the auction close can be a major factor. Depending on the time and day your car crosses the auction block, the right bidders willing to pay top dollar for your car might not be present. Consequently, there's always the risk you might be leaving money on the no reserve auction block. While the risk is somewhat minimal when the collector car market is strong, you risk losing big when the market starts to correct, as we're seeing currently in early 2023. Sell-through rate is the key metric auction houses measure themselves on. It is the number of rides sold divided by the number of vehicles offered. With nearly every other traditional and online auction company now majority owned by venture capital, those companies expect a high sell-through rate. Consequently, these companies tend to push sellers to agree to no reserve auctions. Finally, seventh is the lack of bidder control. Have you ever watched the traditional in-person auction venues? The VIP tables typically found in the first 2 rows of these auctions are usually filled with dealers or their representatives hoping to find bargains to maintain inventory at their brick-and-mortar locations. Dealers then pass their fees and transportation costs directly to the next buyer. We can't think of anything worse than a seller seeing their collector car sold at a traditional auction, only to come across it several weeks later listed on a dealer site for thousands more. That's why Guys with Rides is the only dealer-free collector car marketplace that not only lists private party collector cars, but also does its best to prevent unscrupulous dealers from bidding on our auction lots. If you'd like help navigating the rough seas of collector car auctions, please feel free to call me, Rudy, directly at 877-468-6497 today. I also provide complimentary, no-commitment estimates of your collector car's value. If you found this content helpful, please press the like button. Better yet, please consider subscribing so you're notified every time we provide new content from this channel. Thank you for watching.